Hey guys, I'm Amira and welcome to Open Up. This is your communication podcast and I am your host, also known as the communication expert. I'm your podcast host, your life coach, and also a speaker. Each and every single week, I'm going to be bringing you conversations to help you level up the way that you communicate, whether that's with yourself or in your relationships. Through each conversation, you're going to leave with food for thought, skills that you didn't know you needed, and ways to develop your relationships. So join me here as you learn the lessons that you didn't get to learn at school. Pull up a seat and join us as we open up. Charlotte and Olivia launched Toco in 2017 after feeling frustrated about the lack of options on the UK market for beautiful, high-quality, cheeky swimwear. Now, they'd been spoilt in their teens with vibrant colours and flattering styles from their mum's home country of Trinidad. So they essentially set out to solve their own problem and started designing their first bikini set. I truly believe this is how so many businesses are born. Now, what they put down to a lucky feature in the Daily Mail actually led to them selling out their first collection in just 3 months. Today, we look at the early stages of their business and actually what led and allowed them to leave their corporate careers as auditors and actually go full-time within their business. Naturally, we talk about navigating business and parenthood with 5 children between them. Olivia and Charlotte also give their expertise on why you need to learn how to finance and budget, whether it's in your business or your personal finances. Toco is now set to be the fastest growing independent swimwear brand in the UK this year. Whether you're a business owner or not, I can guarantee you're walking out of this episode with so many gems. Olivia and Charlotte, welcome. 1, to the Open Up podcast. 2, your first podcast recording.
Yes, very excited.
Nervous at the same time.
Well, I promise you it's going to be a conversation. You're going to float into it. I'm super excited, okay, because I'm going to do my pledge first of all. I've been a customer since the beginning.
Love it. Love to hear it.
I also love the way that I bumped into you guys when you were doing pop-up in Eccleston's yard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last summer.
And then when I DM'd you guys, you were like, yeah, Amira, we remember you. And I was like, yes, let's do this.
That is actually the best thing though. We rarely get people who are like, we're customers. But when we met you, we were like, oh my God, it's an actual customer in the wild who knows Toco.
I love that you said that. Honestly, it is. And I know we're going to get into your story and why you guys created this, but I'm just saying from my perspective, when I found you guys, there were my days where I was on adventurous holidays all the time and traveling, but I really, truly couldn't find good swimwear that suited and fitted my body. So to this day, I want to say thank you. I also wore it. I was going to say it on my wedding, but I mean, my wedding was abroad and our pool party afterwards. So thank you, team.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you for buying from
it's
us.
lovely to hear. How did you find us?
I'm
always curious to know where people found us from, who they found us from.
So I like to think I'm a really good detective. I'm very good at a Google search. So I know that it wasn't a recommendation. It was 2017 and I was about to go to Brazil. So like end of the year.
So literally when we launched.
Yeah.
And I literally found my first ever one the other day and I've worn it so much. It's so faded from the sun. And I was like, Amira, you need to stop now. You've overworn that bikini. But I honestly think it was Google.
Yeah.
I think I just searched and searched.
Maybe
that's great.
Some PR in our first year.
Yeah.
Which we're naturally going to get into, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start. Let me keep a structured convo to at least start us off, right? You both, I mean, I am in a lot of awe of both of you. The fact that you, think. No, but honestly, from the outside for me, I think incredible business owners. You're also sisters, which we're going to get into a working relationship because I love knowing how do people work together, what works, what doesn't, how did you find your flow? Like all of that, did it come really naturally? But you're also parents. And I know when we've spoken before, there's elements where you both say, yeah, building a business is hard, but also something that you're keen to kind of get the message out there is that it is also doable. Mm-hmm. So let's say somebody's listening. They've got an idea and they are like, this is not possible. I just don't know where to start. What made it doable for you guys?
Honestly, I feel like the fact that we had each other helped a lot. But I know that a lot of people don't have a business partner.
Yeah.
But we basically just were able to bounce ideas off of each other from the very beginning. I feel like if we didn't have each other to be like, come on, let's just do it.
Yeah.
we might not have done it.
Yeah, and I think it's also someone to kind of keep you accountable to working every evening, to making sure you, because at the time we both had full-time jobs, to like get home, both of us then switch on and start talking about the business. And I think if you're doing it on your own, it might be easy to just kind of think, this is impossible, I don't know where to begin, I'm just gonna watch Netflix, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was really helpful when we first started.
Yeah.
But also, I think the fact that we really didn't enjoy our jobs and we couldn't quit our jobs, that was never an option. So we really, really wanted to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think if you're prepared to sacrifice every evening to work on something like a passion project or a new business, that's when you know that you'll be able to make it successful.
I really like that for so many reasons. And I know, like, so I don't have a business partner, but it's really nice hearing it from you guys, because also, and maybe more so now, but I guess up until this point, my partner's probably been like the invisible business partner, the role he didn't ask for, okay? And he knows way too much about the business. But it is important to have that sounding board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
even as
definitely.
well, if it's not that business partner, I think just having somebody, whether it's accountability or like brainstorming, and I know I'm like way more creative when I'm brainstorming with somebody.
Yeah.
So I think that's helpful. And also interesting to hear as well that you guys had like completely different roles at the time. And actually, what were those early days like when you still had full-time jobs and you came up with this idea and you're like, right, we're going to do this together?
It was pretty hardcore.
It was exciting but stressful.
Yeah.
Because it was very much like a secret at the beginning. I mean, we were in corporate jobs, and obviously setting up a bikini brand is not something that was aligned with our jobs at all.
It couldn't be more polar opposite from at the time, because when we only launched with the Toco bottoms, which was like virtually a thong bikini bottom.
Yeah.
So it really was not something that we felt like we could discuss with our colleagues, even if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So juggling that was quite interesting. Also, the jobs that we were in were pretty just long working hours.
Yeah.
And both of us are very conscientious people. And both of us always, even if we didn't enjoy our job, wanted to do the best at our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just never been one of those people who's just like, I hate my job, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum.
Yes.
Even if I dislike it, I'm still going to put in my absolute maximum
Yeah.
and take it home with me. And
Yeah.
and so that was quite a struggle.
I smile at that because I know that a lot of my clients listening, but also my community, I always say, they get so fed up on me saying this, but it's that high achiever and overcommitting. And even when you don't enjoy something, it can be so difficult to strip back because for you feel like you're giving less than. And I usually say, okay, guys, you're giving probably 200%. So even if you did strip back a little bit, you'd still be somebody else's 100. But it's so difficult to do when you care.
Yeah.
So talk us through this transition of how you've both gone from auditors, corporate life, to even first of all having the idea. Because I mean, I'm also in awe, add it into the fact it's a product-based business and I have a service-based. So I'm like completely different worlds, okay? Where did the idea come from? What were those initial steps? What did they actually look like?
So we basically, I mean, a bit of a background about us. Our mum is from Trinidad, so we spent basically all of our childhood holidays in Trinidad, Easter, summer, Christmas, every year. And we kind of grew up around gorgeous women, gorgeous bikinis from South America. And then we started our corporate jobs. We couldn't holiday as much. And we just thought, there's really nothing in the UK that we wanted or we could compare to the quality that we used to get in Trinidad. So we just thought, why don't we just give it a go? Probably
let's just
in a
design
particularly busy
something.
time at work where we were like, oh God, are we really doing this for the rest of our lives? And we
Okay.
just thought, why not just try it?
Yeah, because at the time we were importing stuff from Australia, which has an amazing, really well-established swimwear market, like beautiful bikini brands, or the States, and then you pay massive shipping, massive import. And we just thought, let's just draw a picture of our ideal bikini. And we drew it and we took it to a seamstress in London. With, I can't remember where we ordered the fabric from. We ordered from a really well-known lycra
Italy.
company in Italy.
Okay.
So we drew a picture. There was no like technical drawing or anything. And I mean, I did art for GCSE, and that's the extent of my drawing abilities. And
I wanted to know as well, like how good designing wise and drawing and artistically.
you're really
I
good
mean,
at
I've got a lot better now. Like
Okay.
we both come up with the designs now, and I sketch them.
Yeah.
But my sketches now I can make them digital and stuff. I've come a long way. But at the start, it was literally just a pencil drawing. We took it to this seamstress, and she made our first sample, which was absolutely awful.
Okay.
It was just awful.
It was terrible. Like it was the Miaro top, and it actually sat so you're completely on the opposite side of your boobs. So you might as well just have been topless. So we started with that, and then through lots of Googling, Olivia actually came across our supplier who we work with now.
Amazing.
And it was literally just luck on Google. We just took a punt with this factory. And we're still with them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd had a few back and forths with other factories in kind of Asia, which didn't work out. There was a time difference, a language barrier.
Yeah.
And we found one in Europe, and we just got really lucky. And we still use him now.
Yeah. Because there are lots of companies now, because everyone wants to set up their own bikini brand now. It's like the hot thing to do. So there are lots of companies that are like, send us your drawing and we'll manage the end-to-end process.
Okay.
But we didn't want to work with someone like that. We wanted to have control over pretty much everything in the supply chain, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So, because there's so many things I want to get into with you guys. What was the tipping point, if there was one, when you are in these early stages? We've sacked off the original seamstress. We're finding a supplier. It's starting to feel like this is doable, and you've still got your full-time roles. What happens next?
So it wasn't until we were. So when we launched the first collection, we were still very much full time at the company we were at. We launched it, kind of friends and family bought a few. It was slow,
Yeah,
Okay.
but we
slow at the
always
beginning.
expected it to be slow. We didn't have a big social media following. We are definitely not influencers. We have no big influencer friends, so it was definitely slow. But then I wrote a very makeshift press release and just spent my life on the internet reading articles about other entrepreneurs and stuff, and just finding the name of the journalist, finding their email through like Twitter or Instagram, or I actually DM'd this journalist that we finally got through to, and I was like, hey, I've got this story I want to pitch to you. And the story was accountant sisters launch thong bikini line. I thought, this is great for the Daily Mail.
They're like, yes, please.
And luckily she picked it up, and she published it, I think it was in July, August time, and it got to the front page of the Daily Mail, and we just sold out the whole first collection. So that's how we kind of
Got on the map.
got on the
basically.
map. That's
Yeah.
how we sold out the first collection. We were then like, great, now we've got this money, we can reinvest it back into the business. We can develop a couple of new styles
Yeah.
and make a slightly bigger second collection. And that's basically how we've grown since then. And it was only after we both could like categorically say that we could replace our salaries, and that's when we left our
Yeah, so we
jobs.
did it alongside work. Well, I think I did it alongside my corporate job for about 3 or 4 years before actually quitting and focusing on it full time.
Yeah, and I left a bit earlier.
Yeah.
I think is lovely to hear, because I know as well, depending on like what entrepreneurs you're listening to and what podcast, I just think it's really important that everyone's journey is really different, and that there isn't a right or a wrong way to do it. But I think it's really refreshing to know that like you can do both. And I mean, you're going to tell me what those early 3 years were like in terms of juggling both. But sometimes I think as well, when I set up my business, that was always like my plan. And I was like, when they match, I'm going to swap them out. Universe had a different plan, so it didn't quite work like that for me. But I really like that as well, because you find your feet, you learn those lessons, and then actually when the shift does happen, I always say like you're ready for it as much as you can be ready.
Yeah.
'Cause you're not going to be able to predict everything. How hard were those first initial 3 years?
It was just like a constant juggle, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Because we basically converted my third bedroom into an office / warehouse space.
Yeah.
And we had walls with IKEA chest of drawers around, and we had like buckets for every style. And every night we would just pick and pack orders, and then we would take huge bags to the post office on Baker Street, near where we were working, and we'd individually process them. But then we got big enough to have a Royal Mail collection and so on. But it was just tiring, really. And also it was just one big secret.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most stressful things, that it was such a secret.
Yeah.
And almost not ashamed of it at all, but we didn't really talk to that many people about it.
No.
Other than family and close friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Because much of our time was spent at work where we couldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And at this point, so when you're in the initial 3 years, you're kind of juggling both. Not speaking about it at work, is this pre the Daily Mail article or post, and more because it's actually, the two don't match or the two don't align?
So I think the Daily Mail article was terrible. I mean, it was amazing for us. It put us on the map, but it was terrible for our jobs. Basically.
I mean, it was probably the worst day in my corporate career ever.
Was awful.
Yeah.
But eventually that blew over, and
they were pretty supportive of it in the end. I mean, the day one, it was very much like getting marched into people's offices. This is really damaging for your reputation. What do you think you're doing? Are you doing this during working hours? This is really short-sighted. You haven't been transparent at all. Probably all quite true stuff, to be honest. Yeah. But then as we had more discussions, the sector that we worked a lot with entrepreneurs, and then I think people were like, we actually think it's quite good that you've got an entrepreneurial side. You can probably relate to our clients a lot more.
Yeah.
And they were supportive of it in the end. They just asked us to not lie in future.
And just keep them totally separate.
Yeah, just keep them separate. And if it did start to kind of, I guess, infringe on our work, then to have a conversation with them about that.
I really like when you both reflect now and say, yeah, probably a lot of that was true. And I think as well, when you're learning and something is new for the first time, it's just that full permission as well that, all right, we didn't handle it maybe in the best way possible. And I think that's quite refreshing. And especially as business owners or entrepreneurs or anybody listening doing something new for the first time, it's really hard to not make a mistake and not
absolutely.
get it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that's refreshing to hear. In terms of, you guys have grown, I think, exponentially in the last few years and gone from strength to strength. What's been some of the hardest challenges in the last couple of years?
That's a good question. I think for us as we've grown, because we haven't grown our team particularly, we've had people kind of come in and out, a bit of freelance, but it has still just been the two of us basically the entire time. Despite being accountants, we outsource our accounting, we outsource our warehouse now, we outsource a lot of stuff. So a lot of jobs that traditionally might be kept in the business are outside of the business. I think the biggest challenge for us as we've grown has been supply chain management. We've had some really viral pieces, especially like our Carib one piece, which people absolutely love. And we weren't able to keep up with that demand. So we had huge chunks of time where we were out of stock. So that's been a real challenge for us, a frustrating challenge as well. Yeah. Because the lead times to get our fabric are very long. We didn't order properly, so we probably ordered more units in a less well-selling style that we could really have allocated. So that's been a big learning curve for us this year.
Yeah, literally the last 6 months is when we've sat down and been like, we need to address this and manage the business differently this year going forwards.
Exactly.
I love the honesty of that as well. And also, when I listen to business owners and entrepreneurs as well, I think one of the most common things is learning and refining really, really quickly, because otherwise you're going to keep making the mistakes or you're going to feel the impact on a longer term. And I love when you're like, no, this is recent. This is just happened in the last 6 months. And obviously I follow you guys on Instagram as your customer, also as my podcast guests. And so I'm constantly I can't wait for the next season coming out, and I'm always looking for those new pieces. So it's really lovely to hear as well the lessons that are going on behind that business. Now, if we take it back to actually when you guys launched and announcing it to friends and family, what was the initial reception or response, I should say? What was the initial response like? Were there anything negative or doubt or just dismissing actually what you guys were about to do?
Dismissive is quite a good word, actually. I mean, even now, I think when we first started, I think our mum was a bit terrified of us leaving our corporate jobs, even though she actually works in a creative job. She's a writer. She's always worked for herself. I think because we were good at our jobs and we were like progressing, we had like a real career ahead of us in the corporate world. I think that she was a bit worried that we were going to just give it all up on something, I guess, like swimwear can seem quite frivolous. You know? It's not like we were, I don't know, developing some cure for a disease. We were making bikinis. So I think the product in itself was a bit worrying. That's all changed now. She's like the biggest Toco fan, but at the start she was a bit nervous. I think.
A bit like, how's that project going?
As though it was like a side thing rather than
exactly.
This could grow and has potential.
Exactly. Like that's cute. That you've got.
That's such a good description.
But I have friends, people I meet even now who I think that they are quite impressed with what we've done. But I think because we do work flexibly, we can take school holidays off. I can do drop off and pick up at school. I feel like they think, oh, well, you don't work. You're so lucky you don't have a job anymore. Another one was, are you going to do that again next year? Like it was a young enterprise project that we just did
still
for
can't
fun.
believe that.
Yeah.
So what I find so interesting about it, we'll come back to actually mum's initial kind of reaction versus where she's at now and that support, and just more around how much you guys took that on or didn't take it on in the beginning, because I think that's quite important as well, and especially when you might believe in something and maybe the people around you don't, and actually how you make sure you don't let too much of that noise in, regardless of who it's coming from. But so interesting in terms of, I want to say, like, society's view or how we've grown up in terms of like what's successful and what's a career. And when you both talk about being able to do school drop off, and I listen to you and I'm like, amazing. Ladies, please teach me. I don't even have kids yet, because for me what I see is, wow, your business is operating without you having to be in it constantly, which for me is not a good sign of a business operating well, but also giving you flexibility where you have choice to decide, right, where am I dedicating my time? And I guess that was going to go back to the things that you outsourced. And I giggled when you said, okay, we're accountants, but we've actually outsourced it. Couple questions, I'm diverting here. What made you outsource accountancy as an example, knowing that it's both your like previous expertise? Because I've got my take on it, but I thought actually let's not assume.
It just doesn't add any value to the business. It's a necessity that needs to be done, but us spending time on it takes away from the time that we could be spending doing much more valuable things, basically.
I would say it doesn't drive growth in the business, but there's a difference between accounting, like bookkeeping, VAT returns, and cash flow management, which is something we very much look after ourselves.
Yes.
So forecasting and things like that our spreadsheets are our babies. our next set of children are our spreadsheets.
Which I think has massively helped with
it has hugely.
The growth of the business, because we are so on top of our finances and our forecasting, and every week really, we're sitting down like, what targets do we have to meet and how are we going to get there? Rather than just being like, okay, well, obviously we want to sell more bikinis this month. Like we have like actual tangible targets that we set ourselves and that we have to meet, basically.
Listen to you, I think, is absolute gold, probably because it's not my area of expertise, right? But also, I do love a dragon's den. And I know that when they do rip people to shreds, it's usually because they don't know their numbers, and it's usually because they don't know their finances. So I think, one, it's a great distinction actually between accountancy, bookkeeping, taxes, and actually your cash flow. And yes, important in any business, but especially when you're talking about actually buying your product up front, or your fabric, who you need to pay, how you're actually going to launch the next season. So it's beautiful to hear that insight, and actually where you guys were so clear on actually where do we need to spend our time, what's going to add the most value to the business, because essentially that's what's going to help you grow. I love that.
Exactly.
How do you deal with some of those dismissive comments?
I just completely ignore it.
Yeah, I ignore it as well.
Yeah.
I still think some friends and people kind of think, you don't work, that's a cute job, and I just say, yeah, it's hard work, but I just pretty much ignore it.
And I think some people, like it doesn't come, I think from mum, the initial nervousness came from a place of like concern for her girls, you know, make sure that we are making like good choices. It wasn't because she thought, oh, that's stupid. You know, it was more, I want to make sure that you're not making a mistake by leaving a job that you're very good at, you know. But other people, I just completely ignore it. Yeah, because they say stuff, they're like, oh, how's Toco? Do you still do it? And I'm like, yep, it's going good, thanks. And
shall I show you our stats?
And I just kind of move the conversation on. I don't know, maybe that's just me being a non-confrontational person.
Perhaps.
I think when you know that your business is doing really well, then what does it matter what other people think?
You just rise above it.
Yeah.
I know I joke because if I am talking, for example, to like my coaching clients and they're avoiding confrontation, it'll be a different conversation. But I like in terms of where you're both approaching that from, because actually, is it energy that you need to give to that conversation?
That's it,
And I think sometimes, some people, it's easy to misconstrue what I say when I'm like, no, have the conversation. But actually, is that a conversation that needs to be had? And you guys know how you're running your business and where it's thriving and what you're both doing well. And actually, you can let those comments slide. And and I think that's important as well. And even making the distinction between mum's initial concern and where that was coming from. And actually, it was from a place of care and like, I love you and I want you both to do well, not dismissive of the idea. And I think that's quite different as well. Question for both of you. At that time when mum had concern and you both are like, we're doing this, okay, we've got a vision for this, were there any doubts for you? Like, did it make you second guess yourselves at all?
I don't think so, no. I don't really remember ever thinking, should we be doing this?
No,
like,
and I think also,
on this?
I think we didn't take risk really at the start. We didn't leave our jobs. We didn't like remortgage our homes. We applied for a government grant, which is like available to anyone once you put together a business plan. So, and obviously it was against Olivia. I didn't take that one. I took the hit. Olivia took the hit, but you know there wasn't really a great deal of risk. Even if we didn't sell anything and we scrapped the idea, we wouldn't have lost tons of money. We wouldn't have lost our jobs. You know, so I feel like there was no reason really to second guess it because there wasn't much on the line.
And it's like, we can try this. We're doing this in a controlled way. But actually, if it doesn't work, then at least we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this really like calculated, logical.
Can you tell that we're auditors at heart?
Yes.
So sensible, so risk averse.
But I also really like it because it's nice hearing like a different version of how somebody's created their company and their brand from a space that felt good. And it doesn't mean that there haven't been a million lessons for you both or you've had to learn in different areas where you didn't have expertise, but hearing it created from a really grounded space is really refreshing.
Oh, that's good to know.
This is why I always say, please give me your calm, grounded energy. I need it. I like as well the fact that actually for both of you there wasn't that much second guessing because you kind of had the backup of like, we know how to do this, or we know like the risk around it doesn't really feel that risk adverse, and so leaning into that felt good. You're both sisters. Can you please tell me this working relationship and how from the outside it looks so effortlessly? Like, how do you guys work effectively together? I'm going to assume your lives, but please correct this, are quite intertwined.
Yes, very.
I think we actually see each other every day of our
Most
lives.
days we turn up in the same outfit.
Yeah, we actually had to pre-plan to not be in the same outfit today because that would have just been embarrassing.
Yeah, we are morphing into each other. But our lives are very intertwined. We have kids together. We raise our kids together. We work together. And I mean, we're just very close. But we do have different roles, I suppose, within the business whereby we complement each other. And I think that helps. And I also think being sisters, you have that closeness whereby if you disagree with something, then
you just say
it's not confrontational to say that. You just say it because
we
you're
don't
my sister.
have like I guess you don't have that professional barrier.
Yeah.
You know, if you said it to a friend maybe, oh, I actually hate that design, I think it's really ugly, your friend might take offense to that.
Yeah.
And you might not be friends anymore. But if you take offense to it, she has no choice but to still be my sister. Yeah. So you are, what I mean is you're much more open to like honest conversation, without feeling like, oh, I need to phrase my words more carefully.
Yeah.
So actually in this situation, it serves you both better because you've got that sibling relationship. Growing up, were you both always close?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been close.
Always been close, yeah.
There's 3 years between us. So growing up, I'd say we kind of led our own lives, but we're very close.
Very
In our
close.
separate friendship groups, but we've always been close. We've got a younger sister as well. And
we're just quite a tightly knit family.
I love that. I love like a family dynamic, and when, especially, probably unbiased because I'm close to my brother and my sister, and they're like my closest sibling relationships. Was there any like transition for you guys starting the business and working together that was a little bit tricky?
maybe like the more challenging times have been where either of us has had to take time out of the business
Yeah.
to have children. So
Yeah.
obviously the load does fall more heavily on the other person. I suppose maybe that's more
Yeah.
challenging times. And then we've had ups and downs with the business where we've been stressed about growth or
Cash flow.
cash flow management. So I suppose that would be like our most stressful time.
I think so, but I think stressful in the sense of running the business,
Yes.
but not stressful
With each other.
with each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sometimes it feels like if I was on maternity leave or you were on maternity leave, I say maternity leave because I mean loosely it doesn't really work like that running your own business. But I feel like one of us would just take that stress burden on themselves, because if someone's got a newborn, you don't want to say, oh my God, I think we've got a cash hole in February, because that's not going to make them feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about maternity and business owner, also because my business manager is also a co-founder of a maternity platform.
Oh, really?
So this is like so timely, but also because I feel that a lot of entrepreneurs will like have questions around that I feel like are going to be so useful. What I wanted to know is, what do you feel makes your relationship work other than the fact that you're both sisters? So when, let's say, for example, let's paint the picture of we're going through one of those stressful times and it happens to be a cash flow problem or issue or on the horizon, we can kind of feel this coming up. What do you think works about your relationship that allows you both to kind of navigate those tough times and get through it together, other than the fact that you're related and have a good relationship? Like, where do your strengths lie?
I think our strengths actually really lie in laying out the situation in front of us, picking out what we've done wrong to get to this point,
Okay.
and then figuring out an action plan to get through it. Like, I think as soon as it's very easy to kind of close your eyes and think,
Yes.
oh my God, I just know something bad is coming up. I know we're going into winter, sales are going down. But until you actually quantify it and actually forecast, looking at what your ingoings and outgoings are, you don't really know how you can address it. So I think with anyone, I mean, even with personal finances, you have to just know everything, know what your expenditure is, and then you can find ways to be like, okay, this is what we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. But I think it's just like, if you were on maternity leave or I was on maternity leave, we just lay out exactly what's happening in the next few months, say this is going to happen, what do we do about it?
Yeah, I think we're both quite practical.
Yeah, practical.
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of hoping
Solutions
for the
driven.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think hoping for the best is probably like one of the worst things you can do.
Can I just say, I can hear through and through like your practical and logical approach, and I value it so much. I'm not going to put myself in the bracket that I'm not, but okay, one thing I wanted to ask, because I feel that like finances and money is sometimes things that like everyone isn't clued up about, business owner or not. And I feel that given your background and your expertise is also why you guys are on it, but correct it if that's wrong, right? But you're also looking through this lens of it's practical. Why would we want to shut our eyes? Like, let's lay it down. Let's actually look at this together. What about if somebody, one, isn't very good at it, and two's got like this fear around money or their finances, even if we're looking at personal finances? What would be your tips? So let's say they don't have your skill set.
Oh,
I think you just have to start. You have to be good at cash flow. I don't think you have to be particularly smart or.
no, I don't think it's
it's
anything to do with academic ability. I think it's like anyone can open Google Sheets
Yeah.
and you just have this is a list of everything that I'm
Yes.
spending money on. You can even just look at your bank statement, your company bank statement, and say, these are all the things I've spent money on, or your personal bank statement, and this is how much money's come in. And if it's a negative number at the bottom, you got to do something about that negative number.
Yeah.
Guys, that's your sign. Negative is not good.
But I think it's a really important thing to learn, I'd say.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you're
even
running
our
a
mum
business,
wants us to teach her how to use Google Sheets,
Yeah.
you know, so that she can do her own taxes instead of her accountant doing it.
Yeah, I think it's just a life skill that
Yeah.
one has to learn, especially if you're trying to run a business and grow a business.
Definitely, I feel like business is like non-negotiable, but also personally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I also feel that these are some of the things like we weren't taught at school.
Yeah.
And I know you can say that for a lot of things, right? But actually really understanding like what needs to be in my toolbox for life. And I listen to you guys, and because you make it sound effortlessly, and I guess I know that with some of my clients at the moment, we're working on that, and it's exactly where we started. Like, okay, and there was so much fear because actually burying their head in the sand came from a space of like, oh my God, this feels so confronting to look at.
Yeah.
And because not just because you guys have got the skill set, but I just really loved the practical, like logical side. Like, no, it's fine. Like, we're going to work through this. We're going to find a solution, and being really solution focused. And I guess I've seen it play out with my clients at the moment where like the fear's taken over.
Yeah.
And we literally just did an exercise. We're like, right, let's pull everything out and let's literally do income and expenses.
Yeah.
And then we can see the bottom figure, and then we can start to talk about actually how we're going to manage it,
Yeah.
what tools, and also work on the mindset around it as well.
Yeah.
Because I think once you know, that's it. You're not scared because you know exactly what problem you've got to deal with. Or on the other side, you might find that, oh, we're actually in a way better position than I thought we were,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
And
which has
therefore we
happened
can-
this year. Yay.
And therefore we can
It's like our first
take more
year where we're
risks.
not like, oh, we can't order all the stock we want to order because, you know, otherwise we can't pay ourselves this month type thing.
I want to say congratulations, because I don't know if you remember this, but when I saw you both in Eccleston's yard, and I was like so excited. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. And it's because you popped down, and it was just the most impromptu conversation. And I remember I was with my friend, and she was like, oh, I've not heard of this brand. I was like, no, let me tell you about this brand. Right? I was like, I am a loyal customer. But I remember, I think I caught you guys at the point where I'm sure you had, like, I think we'd gone, you guys will know the event, like as in the date of
Yeah.
it, but I think we'd gone through summer, so it was like you were at your peak season, and then I think you're about to buy stock, and it was, you guys are going to correct the timeline on this.
I think we might have been about to
Well, it was
launch our loungewear collection.
Okay.
I think that might
No,
have
that
been
was
it.
the year before.
Was it?
Yeah, because Eccleston was last summer.
was it
Oh,
last
yeah, of
summer?
course
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
Maybe we were about to start thinking about ordering for
The new
the
season.
new season.
I think
Oh, yeah,
so.
maybe that was it, yeah.
Does that make sense in the timeline
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
your
I think
business?
so.
Because I was
I
like,
think so.
I actually don't know your business, so you guys are going to correct me. But because I remember as well, you said, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so in awe, and we were talking, and you're like, yeah, we're about to do our order, and you're like, this is where our cash flow goes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And having those ebbs and flows, how have you learned, and I know as well, like even listening to you in terms of the lessons from the last 6 months, how have you learned to lean into those ebbs and flows of the business?
I suppose we're so familiar with it now. I mean, our business is very seasonal, and that's like one thing we've worked on massively this year, trying to, not correct, but trying to help by expanding internationally and just releasing more product throughout the year.
Yeah.
But I suppose we also lean on it through kind of short-term financing.
Yeah.
If we feel like we're coming into a really busy period and we want to spend loads of money on ads, then we have the ability to draw down on short-term finance to kind of help us through those periods and make a bigger return
Yeah.
than the cost of the finance that we're getting out.
Yeah, so there's like our website is on Shopify, which is for anyone starting a business, an e-commerce business. Shopify is, I would not recommend it more.
Yeah.
But when you're a retailer that sells a certain amount, you can get Shopify capital.
Okay.
So it's very short-term capital, and they'll give it to you based on, I guess, how much you're selling through their platform. And it's just short-term financing that can cover the cost of marketing or something. But it's great because it's just like, you obviously pay for it, but it's a cash resource that you can kind of draw down on if you don't want to take that core cash out of your business.
as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, you've learned so many things like about running a business naturally because you're in it. What's one thing that you both wish that you learned sooner about running a business?
My Lord.
Something I wish I'd learned sooner.
And the reason I'm asking, because listening to you both, it feels like naturally the business has evolved and there's been so many baby steps, as in to look at like what the brand looks like now. But there's so many components where I feel like you've just built on what you've known and then you've had to learn something new and then figure it out.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what maybe came a little bit later and like, could have done with that lesson last year.
I think, like we touched on earlier, just stock and supply chain management. I suppose I wish we knew more about it sooner. Because that has resulted in lost sales because we've been out of stock or surplus product that we've had to sell at discount. I think stock and supply chain management is something that has been a massive, massive learning curve for us. I mean, running a product-based business, stock is everything. And thinking about how much to order, when to order. I mean, we sell our swimwear in so many different colours. It's difficult to know what's going to be the colour of the season.
Yeah.
Should we order the same of everything? We've also had to learn a lot about sizing and how much we order per size. So we've kind of learned more each year, but I'd say in the last year we've learned a lot on how we'll kind of grow the business by managing supply chain better.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't think we could have learned any other way than just trial and error and making mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of doing like, I feel like a good way to put it is for our entire existence up until this year, we would do one big bulk order at the start of the season.
Okay.
And we would just kind of hedge our bets on a couple of colours. We think those are going to sell pretty well. Historically, maybe we sell more in this style in a size large or this in an extra small. And then we just place a massive order.
Okay.
And hope that we were right.
And then get so stressed on launch day, we're like, please.
But that just is I would not advise that to anyone ever, because what happens is you're not right.
Yeah.
99% of the time. And then you just have this, oh, well, we need to sell more of this and more of that. And we've got way too much stock in this. So we've changed it this year. So we're basically buying based on demand, which is a much more sustainable way to do it, much less waste.
Yeah.
Just much more thoughtful. And that is something that you can't really know unless you've run a product-based business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know as well, I'm not even going to open this as a whole new topic because I know it will take us off somewhere else. But I know there's a lot in terms around sustainable fashion. And one of my previous guests as well was sustainable bridal wear.
Oh, so yeah, I listened to that one.
I thought you both might like that episode. And so I know that like we kind of took a deep dive there. And I know it's a really like complex area of fashion as well, because the whole production in itself goes against the whole notion of sustainability. And I'm not an expert in it. So I'm okay. I'm not trying to claim to be. But I think it's important where you even say like your approach has shifted and changed. And that's a lot more thoughtful. And actually there's those small tweaks. But also really importantly, there's so much that you couldn't have preempted unless you did it. Now you've learned. And I giggled when you said how you used to do it, because up until this point you were both very like specific, calculated, risk averse. And then I was like, what, you're hedging bets?
Yeah. It's not very like us, actually. I don't know how it happened for such a long time.
I know.
Yeah, I think that's something actually that, well, we still don't have, but we've never had a mentor. It's something we've always talked about, but the people who you find like inspiring, it's like, what, do you just DM them and say, hey, will you be my mentor? I just would not even know how to approach that. But I feel like having a mentor who is in the space of a product-based business, e-commerce brand would be or would have been incredibly useful for us. Because I think they would have said, what are you doing? That's not how you manage stock.
Okay, I'm going to put a pledge out there. Okay, I'm going to say, guys, yes, go DM your mentor, whoever you want to be your mentor. And even though you're at a different stage of the business and there's probably different things you'd want now versus what you needed in the early days, guys, if anyone wants to be a mentor, I was going to say, don't let me know, let them know. Yeah, definitely. But if you've got people in mind, please go and DM them. I remember as well, like, my mentor, I I knew as well, this is really, really specific, but I really knew that I wanted a male mentor, but I've got really masculine energy, and I just knew that I wanted my mentor that wasn't necessarily like in my industry. I didn't need them to be a coach, and I just work well with male energy. So I was like, that's who. And I had a couple of people in mind and I wasn't sure. And I'm really big into manifesting, and a lot of my things, even when you guys talk about your supplier and you said, oh, it's just, we got lucky. I always say that it's probably a lot of work that you guys did and why it's aligned, even sometimes when we don't realize it. And anyway, the point is he's become my mentor. But I knew when I met him, he didn't know this. And I was like, yeah, he's going to be my mentor.
Really? Oh, so you said it in your mind?
Yeah, in my mind. I was, and it was a real off chance that we met. It was like, I couldn't have predicted it. He couldn't have. And I think it was something like we were out and he was like, oh, excuse me, can I borrow that chair? And I was like, oh, by the way. And we started chatting because I knew he knew mutual people. And I was like, you don't know me, but I'm a mirror.
Oh,
and I went for it.
How did you, this is me asking you the question
Yeah,
now.
go for it.
How did you ask him to be your mentor?
So,
because I feel like it's like asking someone to be your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Please be my mentor.
Do you know what? That's actually a really good analogy, because it is a really personal relationship, and you've got to have that rapport. And sometimes I think you can have, like, I had an idea of somebody else that I wanted it to be, and then after a little while I was like, oh no, like that energy is not going to work. So initially, that's kind of the initial meet. And then we were talking about work and business. And I just knew he had the business mind that I really needed. And then he naturally, as we were talking, by the end of the conversation was like, oh, we should go grab a coffee. And I was like, most definitely we should grab a coffee. So then I went into that meeting most definitely being like, I'm not going to walk out of it without asking him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And actually the tables turned and he offered it.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
But I would say that my intention was really there. So I know that's kind of it doesn't answer the question because I didn't naturally ask, but this is how I would have said it, because it was in my mind and it was my intention. I would have said by the end of it, okay, this is where I'm at in the business. These are the pieces that I think I'm lacking. I do admire him, and he's got a skill set that I don't have. Probably the same way I big you guys up and I'm like, I'm in a review because of XYZ, but I'm really open about it, and I love cheerleading other people, especially when you've got a skill set that I don't have, because I'm like, teach me, how did you learn that? If I've got it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll teach you that, it's no problem. But I would have said to him, yeah, I really value you because of XYZ, and I want to grow, and this is my vision, but I know I've got blind spots and there's things I'm definitely missing, so how do you feel about being my mentor? And if he said no, I was in the same position.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a sign,
because I never know if you have to offer them something in return.
Yeah, so
it's like the unspoken thing.
Yeah, definitely. So I always say, generally speaking, and I know this is my industry in terms of like I coach, I would always say coach versus mentoring. Typically speaking, mentoring tends to be like a free exchange, typically speaking. I'm not saying everybody works to that rule, but I think I was like, let me ask first and then we'll approach that conversation. And we've kind of just worked it in a way where it works with both our schedules. It's not an everyday thing. It's not even like a monthly. But I know I've got checkpoints within the year. Yeah. And it tends to be like way bigger strategic. And I think that's probably what you need your mentor for. Yeah. But everyone's different and people could charge.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I like when this goes the other way.
Yeah.
I've not had
Thank you. We've learned something today now.
That makes me so happy. Okay, there's one thing that we touched on and I didn't come back to, and I have to do this, right? Can we please talk about maternity leave as business owners?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
how many maternity leaves have we had between us whilst running Toco? 4?
Well,
5?
Yeah, I suppose
4.
Because Jacob was
just
pre-Toco.
Yeah,
so 4.
Okay, so for everybody that doesn't know, how many kids each do you both have?
I have 2.
And I've got 3.
Okay. So you've had 4 maternity leaves whilst running a business.
Yes.
Let's define. First of all, what did the maternity leave look like?
So I have the youngest. I have a 1-year-old. You just don't, you never really switch off. But we work for ourselves, so our work is flexible. But when you run a business, you can't ever switch off, really. But it's not like I was having to do stuff every single day at all. But I just would have to bring my baby with me where there were things that I did have to do, like photo shoots or meetings. But
and I think it's more about when we were on maternity leave, it was more about making sure we were there for each other as a sounding board, as opposed to like doing the doing.
Yeah.
Just making sure we touch base what's going on with the business, and we would touch base every day. So we just kind of, and if there was anything we needed to do, we'd just do it in the evenings. I mean, 2 days after I had Ruby, who's my youngest, I redid the entire website because I think I was like running on adrenaline, and it was COVID. So we were like, we need to sell, because how are we going to get through it? No one's going on holiday.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of adrenaline flowing. So I just did it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just kind of, when you have like energetic moments during maternity leave, I would always work on Toco. But
because
just not in a
maternity
formal
leave can
capacity.
be boring at times. I mean, you're off
There's
with
only so
a
many
small
baby classes you can go
you're
to.
off with a small baby the whole time. So it's quite nice to have a different creative outlet. I mean, babies sleep a lot at the beginning, so it's quite nice to spend your time doing something other than just like tidying or cooking around the baby sleeping, and actually doing something that's interesting.
Just to switch on. Like I feel like it was nice to have something to feel like myself.
Yeah.
Because you do lose a lot of sense of self when you've had a baby, because your whole life is looking after this small thing that is totally dependent on you. So sometimes it's nice to just, how's Toco going? Like, what do we need to do? How are sales? Yeah.
I wanted to say how refreshing to hear, because I was also going to ask you, and I feel like you've probably answered this already, but like, was there anything in terms of looking back that you would have liked maternity to look differently? And the only thing, because I haven't had kids yet, I'm like, we're putting it off. Conversation for a very different day. So I'll probably ask out of like interest, but also because from a business owner point of view, I really get, and it's very nice to hear, your brain doesn't switch off. Like, since I've had a business, and I love it, and I just wouldn't trade it for the world. No matter how many lows we go through, no matter how stressful things get, and I always say my clients are not stressed. It's like the business side of running a business. So I really get that when you're like, you just never switch off, but it's also part of having a business, right? But how refreshing when you talk about as well, and I haven't had this from experience, it's from different conversations around, lots of females feel like I've lost myself, or my body shape's changed, and I feel differently in the way that I look at my body, my sense of self, how I value myself. And actually to have, as you said, this creative outlet or something else to focus on that fuels that creativity as well. So thank you for giving me so much reassurance that I needed. On a serious note, looking back, is there anything you would have liked to be done differently in your maternity leave? Whether it's like more time out, whether it's, anything. I actually don't want to give you suggestions.
I actually don't think so, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either. I think I had very balanced maternity leaves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there was anything where I was like, obviously, when you're not working for a big company, the maternity pay that we got.
Maybe that's what we never changed.
But aside from that, I don't think that there's anything I would do differently.
I suppose where it's a product-based business, we are, to an extent, stuff just keeps happening in the background. Like, we have a warehouse who do all our fulfillment. So a lot of that stressful side of it just happens in the background anyway.
Nice.
So I don't think I would have changed anything.
Yeah.
I also feel as well, I'm just adding my opinion here, so you can tell me differently. But I also feel because of the supportive way that you both work collaboratively together as founders, it really works, and it just feels that you ebb and flow so well between each other.
Yeah, that does help a lot.
Yeah.
On top of the sibling dynamic. So it feels so supportive, and you give each other that space, but you're also there for each other in a way that's capacity, and you know the other person. You probably can read each other pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And like during maternity leaves, it was never a case of you're hounding this other person with questions, because we've both been through it, so we both know how it works, and we've just never really seemed to have an issue with it. I think that's something that both of us, like independently having our kids, have always wanted, is that the kids have fit really nicely like into our into our lives. Like a lot of my friends that I've spoken to in the past who haven't had kids yet or whatever, or have had kids, say, you know, it really does change your life completely. And it does, for sure. But I think with Toco, we've kind of done it in a way that means that it hasn't stopped what we've wanted to do, you know? And I mean, I think being a stay-at-home mum is the hardest job on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And having Toco is like my saviour, because I think I would be really bad at it.
Oh, I wouldn't want to be I don't think I'd want to be a full-time stay-at-home mum.
It's a hard job.
Yes.
So people say, oh, it's so hard juggling your job and being a mum. But I think being a stay-at-home mum's harder, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm smiling, and I know it might feel like it's something that I can't speak on. And I've got my 2 nephews, and I think I was like 20 when they were born, and they're almost like teenagers now. But I am like their second mum, and everyone's like, they're not yours. It's very different. But in the early days, my sister still worked, and she had events and she'd be abroad. So I'd always look after them, and I'd have 2 together. And I was very, very, very involved in their lives in like the first 5 years. So I'm like, okay, guys, I have a good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
My sister always jokes because she's like, I think this is why you've put it off for so long. She's like, because
You've been scarred.
Yeah, she was like, you know what you're walking into. I was like, yes, I do. But I remember as well, I used to take time off. And bear in mind, they were like good kids, like so amazing, love it. But I remember as well going back to work being like, this is so easy, throw it at me. And that was just small pockets. So I really hear you, without it being my own children, that taste of it for like that significant period of my life. And being young, my friends always say, I don't know how you did it, but you just get on with things. But I remember walking back into the office being like, I actually get to sleep and I don't have to worry, and I'm not thinking about.
I'm just like having a coffee on my own.
Yeah.
And it's not cold?
Yeah, it's not cold. That's why I always order my coffee extra hot now, because I know by the time I go to drink it, it will have cooled down significantly. So I have to start extra hot.
I'm taking that tip. It's all these little life hacks that we need.
That's the only reason I do it. It's not because I like it scalding my mouth.
Okay, so I feel that there is so much inspiration in terms of heritage, where you guys have grown up. How do you keep that inspiration fresh when we're coming up to a new season? Not that I'm asking for any secrets of 2024.
Well,
there's no real huge thought process to it, other than we sit down and we think, what do we like, basically?
Yeah, like
what
we've never really been particularly like trend-led company. We've always kind of prioritized really timeless, well-fitting styles in bold colors that we like.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that comes on to TV shows like Love Island, things like that, where it's like the underboob bikini. Do you remember that, where you could see? And things like that just have never. We would never make it just because we think that we'd be able to sell it. Everything we make because we think it's flattering, it's good quality, the colours are really nice.
Yeah.
And of course we take inspiration from stuff that we see out and about. Like we might see a top and think, oh, the fastening on that's really nice. How could we kind of work that into the back of a bikini top, for example?
Nice.
So we do draw on inspiration from places, but...
And from customers. We have like a very, very loyal customer base. And a lot of our iterations are led from what
customer
people
feedback,
want, basically.
Yeah.
I think as well, listening to a lot of other people that have created businesses and nothing to do with swimwear, I think one of the biggest pieces I've heard that's a consistent theme is listening to your community or your customers.
Yeah.
And actually your brand evolves and grows because you're listening to them, and that feedback and those iterations come from your community.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's so important. The other thing I think that you guys do so well, and this is more in terms of like your models and your shoots, there feels like there's so much diversity and inclusion, whether it's size, whether it's what you look like. And for me, I feel like that's so refreshing when I'm looking at a brand. Has that always been intentional from the beginning?
It's definitely been intentional for the past couple of years, basically where we've had budget to do these bigger campaigns and get more people involved. It's something that we kind of pride ourselves on.
Yeah.
And we just want to keep doing more and more of as we go forwards.
Yeah, like it kind of came naturally at the beginning because we rely heavily on customer generated content. And as we saw like more people tagging us, that's how you grow organically as a business. If people tell their friends about you, you know, you can spend as much ad spend as you want, but unless you're getting that real like referral from a friend, nothing is as good as that. Yeah. So as we saw more customers coming through, and with a small budget, we really wanted to do this thing on the website where you could see your size. So we have like a feature where you can see each style modeled on extra small through to extra large, and we really wanted customers to be involved in that, because we've always like we pride ourselves on being a swimwear brand for like a normal person.
Yes.
You know, because lots of the brands are like super sexy, beautiful campaign imagery, but for me, I feel it's quite unapproachable. So we've always wanted to be an approachable brand, and including our customers in that is just the best way for us to get feedback, to get them involved, and for someone else who might be new to Toco to feel like, oh, they look like me, you know, and I could see myself wearing that.
I think you do it to an absolute T. As in from a customer perspective, honestly, and it is really refreshing. Thinking about a comment that you said earlier, that now, you know, everyone wants to start a swimwear line, and when you guys started, there was a lot less, I want to say competition, but not in a negative way, just there was a lot less people trying to create a brand. What's that market space like now for you guys, having, I say, quite an involved business?
I think it's a very saturated space, yeah. There's always room for more than one swimwear brand. Like there's a swimwear brand for everyone. Yeah. So we never see it as like competition per se, but we do roll our eyes sometimes when we're like, oh, there's another person setting up a swimwear brand.
Often a big influencer.
Oh, yeah. And they come and go. And that's actually one thing that we were talking about before we came here is we have had to make a conscious effort to not kind of focus on other brands' social media followings or like who it is that launches them, because we don't have a fast growing Instagram following, you know. We have a very steady, sustained growth, but we're not like hundreds of thousands of followers. And sometimes that can make you feel, oh, am I as successful as that other brand?
Yeah.
But then next year that other brand has disappeared. Yeah. So you have to kind of hold on to that. It's not all about how many followers you have. Like, oh, that brand, look at that campaign, they must have so much money, they've also raised an investment. Yeah. Gone in 2 years. Yeah. You know, I think we have to constantly think, you know, we've stood the test of time.
Yeah. We have
we've continued to grow
community
at a really good pace. And we have a great community. So despite it being very saturated, we have a very, very loyal customer base.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful to hear like the groundedness in your answer, and not because I was looking for something specifically, but I know I hear it from my clients as well. And forget like business or not, that comparison can creep in so easily.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know that like, and this is from somebody who's built her business off of social media. Like, I love my Instagram. I love my Instagram community. I'm literally like, guys, you're my favorite.
Yeah.
But that downside, and I was having a conversation actually with a client recently who wants to use Instagram as their marketing tool, but is equating likes to like their validation or it being worthy. And so I think it's so beautiful to hear from you both that we can see that and we can hear it creep in, and actually you said no, actually we have to ground ourselves, and we stood the test of time. And that one, I really like the abundance mindset. So like, you know, there's always space for more, welcome people into that, but also having faith in what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And I really like, especially as well, when the comparison creeps in for you guys around, oh my God, well, they raised investment or they spent X amount on this campaign. And it's also because we've got way too much access to too much information. Yeah, who has this much visibility over somebody else's business, and how we'd never had that before. So it's so easy. And I think it's just so refreshing that if somebody is listening right now and business related or not is finding themselves constantly comparing and that they aren't doing a good enough job or that this isn't working, it's okay. That isn't your sign that you're doing something wrong or doing something badly. But also say, put some people on mute, guys.
Yeah.
It's helpful. Okay, before we wrap up the episode, is there any secrets, hints or tips you can let us in for season 24 and what we can expect?
Oh.
Wow, it's launching at the end of March.
Okay, I thought we'll be live as you guys are launching.
Okay, perfect timing.
What are secrets? We've got pretty much all new colours.
Oh, this is exciting.
We've got the long-awaited black and white,
Yes.
which people have been asking for ages, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
We have loads of new styles.
Loads of new styles, loads of new colours.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a brand new collection. We have our core staples still coming, but yeah, it's very exciting.
So this is new.
Yeah.
In every respect.
In every respect.
Oh, I love new.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yes. It's very
can't
exciting.
wait.
I'm ready too. Okay, guys, before I even say thank you and just giving us an insight into your world and also trusting me for being your first podcast, I ask every guest 3 questions
Yes.
to wrap up our episode. So feel free if you guys want to take it one by one, or if you both want to answer every question. It's your episode. You get to do it however you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Who has the best answer? We'll see.
It can also be something that you've said already in an episode or something new. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So first question, what's your favourite quote that you want to share with our listeners today? Or even, I like to call it like food for thought, something you want to leave us with that's going to marinate in our brains.
I think mine would be, because I was thinking about this, because I knew the questions were coming up. So I did think about
Full
this.
transparency.
Full transparency. But there was one by the founder of Y Combinator, which was like the first huge incubator in Silicon Valley. And he said the best founders are relentlessly resourceful. And I think that's something that has really applied to us. Like, don't just grow a team to like hit a vanity metric. Like, learn every single job in the business, wear every hat, because that's how you grow a business.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great answer.
That was mic drop, amazing. Amira doesn't want to ad lib.
I think I don't remember the exact quote.
Yeah.
But it was something along the lines of overnight successes often are many, many years in the making. So it's kind of touching on the comparison point that we were talking about. You see these businesses like blow up and you're like, oh my God, how did they do it? They're massive. But really, that might be 5 or 10 years of hustling in the background to make it massive. So yeah, it's just not comparing yourself to the other businesses out there and kind of seeing that competition as like motivation to make yourself bigger and better.
Yeah.
We needed to hear that message. I love that. But also as well, I just love, Amira should not be ad-libbing on an episode at this point. But anyway, here we are. When you said as well, use it for motivation. And I always say, like, turn that into inspiration if you can.
Yeah.
Because you need to see somebody else do it for you to realise, like, I can do this too.
Yeah.
And if that's what it sparked in you, then great.
Yeah. I'm totally inspired by some other swimwear brands. I think like some have done an amazing jobs. And I don't see it as like, oh, they're taking market share from us. I just see it as like, wow, good job.
Yeah.
Hope to be there soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Or get closer to it, you know?
I have no doubt, guys. Okay, no doubt. Okay, question number 2, a practical takeaway that you actually want our listeners to walk away with.
Do you want to start?
Do you have something in your mind already?
No.
Okay. A practical takeaway.
Learn to use Google Sheets.
Yeah, I mean, I
setting up a
suppose like
business.
keep on top of your cash flow. Learn to use Google Sheets, learn to do your financing, learn to do forecasting, set yourself targets every month, figure out how you're going to make those targets, track them. I mean, that's how we grow, isn't it? We just keep on top of it all and set ourselves these big targets and we're like, well, how are we going to get there? And if we're not getting there by the middle of the month, we're like, well, what are we going to do to change that?
Yeah.
And we pretty much rely on that to drive our growth. And that's how we then think of the strategies to make more sales, I suppose.
Yeah. I think mine would be, it sounds a bit negative though, mine. It is very practical though.
Go for it.
If you're setting up a business and you have a job already, don't quit your job. Until you've like proven to yourself that you're prepared to commit every evening to this side project. Do that first, because there's nothing worse than feeling stressed financially when you're trying to set up a business.
Okay, I'm going to add to both of these points, okay? Amira's just gone. She's broken her own rules today, okay? The Google Sheets and actually getting on top of your finances and understanding it, I feel that you guys say it so effortlessly because it's something you've either done for a very long time or was innate or you learnt from a very young age, okay? Yeah. But knowing who I work with and like my clients and what we cover in sessions, it isn't. So I feel like it's gold because actually if anybody's listening and you are ignoring your finances, maybe this is the little nudge that you needed to be like, okay, if there's one thing I do today out of this episode, it is to like, let me pull out my income and let me look at my expenses. So I feel when you guys talk, it's so effortlessly because you're in it, and it's your thing you don't think about. There's so many people, past version of me included, and Mira needs to hold her hands up. We're doing some deep work on it this year. So I wanted to say thank you for that, because I feel like it is so needed. We needed to hear that one. Okay, coming back to, you felt it sounded negative, but there's nothing like being stressed financially. So my plan was always, you know, to launch my business in a similar way to you guys and leave my corporate career when I had swapped out my salary. And it didn't work that way. And if anyone new is listening, very quickly, otherwise it won't make sense. I launched the business. I was so excited. It was 12 p.m, 8th of Feb. By 4 p.m, I was made redundant, but I had no warning or anything, and I was under 2 years. Because I forget to say that, because then everyone's like, amazing, you got a redundancy package. I was like, no, I got nothing, no. And I just got a mortgage.
So stressful.
Yeah.
That's so stressful.
So I wanted to reiterate it and just to share from my own personal experience. I don't think it landed negatively, but if you can avoid it. And I always say, like, for me on my journey looking back, I think it needed to happen that way for me. And I know it did, because my business wouldn't have grown in the way that it has. But also, I think I would have talked myself out of it. And I'd prepped a year before we launched, right? And so I think the universe was like, right, you're not going to physically do it, so I'm doing it for you, and you're going to have to be stressed and deal with it. And is it the first 6 months I ever want to relive? Hell no. But I feel that if you can take a planned and prepared approach, then please do it. Oh, guys, you just dropped the wisdom. Okay. The last and final question, what's a resource that you want to share? So I always say it can be a book, it can be a TV show, it can be a podcast, anything that's either helped you or that you enjoy watching or reading that you think someone else might.
I mean, I'm very time poor. Having 2 young children, very fair. I do not have a huge amount of time to read lots of books or listen to lots of podcasts. I suppose, like, my main thing is getting out the house every day, exercising, doing stuff like that, and that kind of gives me time to reflect and think about work, but think about other things and kind of get me in the right mindset.
I think that's important, because also I've just run a self-love challenge, and part of it, there was like 7 different days where we looked at 7 different parts, but one part of it was like learning how to be alone. And I think it's really important as well, because I had somebody in the challenge who's just become a parent, and they're like, I struggle so much to find that time for myself. And I was like, don't make it an hour, like make it the absolute bare minimum. And I think that's quite refreshing to hear, that say, right, it's not even my time to reflect on work. It's just, can I just sit with my thoughts and like have that check-in with myself? So I feel like that's really powerful, and something that we can just implement as well straight away. So find that time, even if you're time poor. Even if it's like 5 minutes out of the house with nobody, no responsibility, no answering emails, no mum. Like, take it, because we need it. We need to sit with our thoughts.
I think I don't really have like a particular resource that I go to, but there are definitely events and stuff that you can go to where you see kind of inspiring people. So one I went to years ago, it was a Sheer Lux event, and Connie Nam, who's the founder of Astrid and Miu, she was speaking, and she came from this kind of financy background, and then she's made Astrid and Miu, which is like a huge success, incredible. And she recently started, or maybe it's a continuation of an old thing, but it's a podcast series called Unbox Founders. And she kind of interviews, I guess, like her group of founder friends, but she interviewed like Nicola Elliott, who started Neom, and some others. And I just found it like super inspiring to hear their stories. And I think it's more like reading about other people's stories, not from a particular resource, but I always find it really motivating to hear how other people have done it. Like Neom, for example, is like over 15 years old, but you think it's like only in recent times that it's got super successful, but it's been a long time coming, you know. And I find that incredibly inspiring.
I think it's such a beautiful resource, and I'm smiling because I literally listened to an episode recently.
Really?
So as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, but I didn't realise it was part of the series, and I think I landed on it by accident.
I think I kind of like came across it because I'd followed Connie, and then I just kind of you know, you like go on Instagram and then you stalk all the videos.
Yeah. And I think as well, I hadn't seen her speak before. And I am, no wonder you guys are sitting in front of me, but I'm obsessed with like business owners and understanding their journey. And I love like the psychological side of like what's made people work, where's been those sticking points. So it was really lovely to hear her speak. So just validating there.
Yeah.
Ladies, I want to say the biggest thank you from the bottom of my
Thank you for
heart.
having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having us. Great first podcast. Really enjoyed it.
That's a wrap. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks for joining us for another conversation this week. You know the deal by now, so please hit subscribe, leave a review. Don't forget to share this with a friend. And if you want to come and hang out with me, then click Instagram. You'll find me at _communication expert.